Welcome to What Not to Do. I'm Kyle Schmitz, and this is episode 32. I've got Jarrod Haning with me here. He's a performance coach, a mindset performance coach, and he helps his clients double their income by working half as much. Too good to be true? Well, he had a client who was a financial planner making $400,000 a year and helped him within a year and a half to get to $1.2 million. Wow! Stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, you want to know why? Well, I'll tell you why. My why is to use my presence and my prose to inspire you to go all in on you so that you live a legacy worth leaving. Again, to use my presence and my prose to inspire you to go all in on you so that you live a legacy worth leaving. And I want to inspire 1 billion people to live a legacy worth leaving by 2030. That's 10 years. That's 100 million people per year. So let's go. Join me in this mission to help equip the world for success and inspire 1 billion people to live a legacy worth leaving. All right. So we've been having some good laughs off air as we kind of just I've been walking Jarrod through what we're going to be doing here on the show. But man, I'm so excited. Jarrod is all the way over in Columbia, South Carolina, and I'm all the way up in Green Bay, Wisconsin. It's raining there. It's raining here. I mean, we're having a blast. You're in shorts. I'm in shorts. And I'm just kidding. I mean, pretty much. But Jarrod, man, I'm so pumped to have you on the show. Jarrod is a performance coach, and his clients double their income by working half as much, which is, if that doesn't blow your mind, then you probably aren't even listening to this podcast right now. So I'm excited to dive into that, but there's so much more to Jarrod. We were just talking music, talking life. So Jarrod, thank you so much for being on.
Thanks for having me. It's going to be a good day.
Yeah. So, Jarrod, you've got a great smile. I love it. And Jarrod actually reached out to me and he sent me a really cool intro video. So that's how we actually connected. And it was awesome. And so it's kind of fun looking at Jarrod now. We're not in the flesh, but we're on video, which is really, really cool and amazing how technology kind of levels that playing field.
Yes. Discovering that video tool has been so wonderful. You know how you meet somebody online and it changes the way you would interact with them. Mm-hmm. If you're on a dating app or something, you're not meeting a person. It's like, well, how old are they? How tall are they? It's all these things that you wouldn't care about at all in real life. When you meet somebody in real life, you don't even care what their name is, for crying out loud. You're just engaging with them. And if the energy fits, it's good and you explore it. If it doesn't fit, you don't. But the last thing on your mind is how old or how tall or what's your name or what do you do for work or whatever. So discovering that video tool was a game changer for me to be able to connect with people. And if the energy matches, let's go ahead and set up a call, get to know each other. And if it doesn't, none of that other stuff even mattered.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Totally agree. Yeah. It's amazing. Yeah. And we kind of have this weird skepticism these days of anyone that reaches out to us, they're out to get us, they're out to use us, they're out to scam us. They want my social security number. And I'm here to say you did not ask for my social security number when you reached out. So
if that is the bar to clear, consider it done.
1% better, baby. Well, Jarrod, the fun thing about this, and I'll mention this from time to time with our listeners, is these conversations, are a first time for me, and they're a first time for our listeners, which is really, really cool. So we're running this thing relatively unscripted, unprompted. I did give you a heads up as far as hey, we're going to be focusing on failures and think of, what you've done right and what you've done wrong and what you might do differently. And some books you're going to share as far as recommendations at the end. But where this goes, it's anybody's guess. And that's really exciting to me. I hope that's exciting to you. And I know our listeners have really, really been enjoying that. So I'm curious, man. I have no idea who you are. I'm going to venture to say, aside from who you might share this with in your network, most of our listeners probably have no idea who you are. So who is Jarrod Haning?
I work as a performance coach, a dad, the world tickle champion in the 5-year-old category, musician by trade, my background.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're just living life and being true to that voice inside that says, "Hey, go create."
Yeah, love it, man. So we always have to double click. It's clickbait when you say the world tickle champion for the age 5 category,
Okay,
right?
fair enough. That
Let's
is
go.
just a fictitious name that I made up to call myself. I
Yeah.
made that title up. If it exists, I would happily go compete. But I really just made that up.
Yeah. So, but where does it come from? What's the story?
The story is I've got a boy, right?
Yeah.
And boys like to wrestle.
Oh yeah.
He's
Oh
like,
yeah.
"Come on, Papa. Come on, Papa." So when he was younger, it was, "Come on, Papa, let's fight. Come on, Papa, let's fight." And now it's we do this opposite wrestling. We call it stand-ups. And so you get like in the traditional competitive wrestling all fours pose, and we set a timer. Right now we set a timer for a minute because he's 10 years old, and oh my gosh, I just can't go longer than that. It's ridiculous. So we set a timer for a minute, and the guy on bottom, his job is to stand up, and the guy on top is trying to keep him from standing up. So this is the bit of wrestling. Not trying to pin him. You're just trying to break free.
Yeah.
So we'll do that for a minute. And when he was younger, I would like kind of interrupt the wrestling and tickling for a little bit. And he'd be
Yeah.
like, "No, Papa, no, it's cheating. No tickling, Papa. No, it's cheating." We're having a good time. So yeah, we call them stand-ups. That's our game.
That's awesome. I love that. I'm gonna have to. So I've got a few boys at home, and I'm gonna have to implement that with them. That's cool. I but for one of my boys for when he was 3 years old. Well, he's 3 right now. Got him boxing gloves for his birthday, and he loved those. So so I got a pair for myself, and just that kind of fun stuff. But I always love hearing different things that dads do with their kiddos, and it's cool. It's awesome.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I got him some gloves. I thought he would want to go punch around. They didn't last very long for us. But the wrestling's always been a mainstay. I don't know why.
We got him a pair of wooden swords when he was 2.
Yeah.
And it was great because he'd be jousting with me, but then when we'd have friends come over and their kids that weren't used to playing with wooden swords, that then would play with wooden swords. I mean, my son was used to going after this 350-pound guy, and I would let him hit me really hard because I could take it,
Right,
and then he's going after these 2-year-olds.
Oh my
awesome.
gosh.
Yeah. So anyway, fun stuff, man. So cool. And you're a musician. What do you play? What do you do? What do you sing? What's the gig there?
I am a musician by trade. So classically trained, started on viola. Oh, actually started on piano. I didn't know how much I hated the piano until I discovered the viola and fell in love with it. It was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea music could be so wonderful. I went to college on music performance. I took 4 years off. Felt like I was kind of burned out. I didn't enjoy the symphony and that stuff, but after 4 years, it was like, man, this is a part of me. I got to get back to it. So then I returned, got my master's also in performance. And then I worked for about 20 years as a freelance musician. Pretty cool stories there. Once, if we end up talking about business, as a freelance musician, I went from 50,000 a year to 100,000 a year. And I went from 40 hours a week to 20 hours a week. So
Sweet.
I doubled my income and I cut my time in half. And the way I did that is not unique to music. So hopefully we'll have a chance to talk about that because I believe it applies to every industry out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so yeah, we definitely will. So viola is actually one of my favorite instruments. I don't play it, but I love the sound of it. It's so rich.
Oh, super weird. Wow.
Yeah, that sweet spot in between a cello and a violin. I love the register. There's the timbre of it. It's just gorgeous. And you don't see it doesn't seem like it's common. It seems like people either hit home with cello or violin, but viola seems to be overlooked like the middle child.
It is. I mean, it's the redheaded stepchild of the orchestra. You might as well play saxophone or something. It's just it's ridiculous. But for good reason. Because of its range, its timbre, it's not a good melody instrument. It can't cut through and carry on top. It's not low enough to give that warm hug of the bass and the harmony. So the viola just kind of plays filler. It just kind of does added color, added texture. It's great for filling out like a string quartet or filling out a string orchestra. But it's not the kind of instrument you'd ever want to hear play a solo.
Hmm.
It's definitely unique, and also the people who play it are unique. I don't know why this is. I'm hoping someday somebody will do like a scientific study on it. But people tend to match their instruments. If you think of all the trumpet players, they tend to have a certain demeanor and personality. All the violin players, they tend to have a certain outlook, demeanor, and I don't know why that is. And so it's interesting to sit in orchestra and notice the kinds of things people get upset over.
Hmm.
And you're like, yeah, pretty much every bassoon player we've ever had has complained about that exact thing. I don't know what it is. Is it the personality that picks the instrument, or is there something about playing that instrument that shapes your personality over the years? I don't know. It's weird.
Hey, this is Kyle. Well done on your decision today to be great. Those are my kiddos in the background. Hey, if you want more of this kind of content, find me on social media. We'll keep the conversation going. You can hit me up on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, at StartWithWNTD. Again, at StartWithWNTD. We'll see you there. That's actually fascinating. I've never heard that. Is that kind of a truism in like music culture, in orchestra culture?
Truism in the sense that the jokes reflect the personality. So the kind of jokes that you would tell about viola players are different than the kind of jokes you tell about violin players.
That's so funny.
Just different. Like so a violin player joke would kind of poke fun at their ego, would poke fun at their arrogance. Like, so a violin joke might be something like, why are violins so small? They're not really that small. It's just that violin players' heads are so big. Ha ha ha. Right. But a viola joke makes fun of kind of the player's ineptitude and kind of bumbling through life. And you talk to enough viola players, and they're a little more chill. They're a little more. They're not A player. Well, I don't mean they're not A players, but they're not type A personalities. So a viola player joke might be something like, why are viola players found wandering around at night, by their house? Why are they outside their house at night? And the punchline is because they can't find the key and don't know when to come in. So, the joke's making fun of the caliber of musician.
Yeah. I was thinking like it might be something like, some kind of joke or whatever that, viola players they're just a filler, they're not really necessary or needed, or, that's hilarious, man. Needed. That's awesome. That's, I wonder how much that's true of just all of life. Like if there's a principle there, like where, the things that we spend our time with, and maybe there is, like you've heard the thing, we are the average of the 5 people that we spend the most time with. And so kind of this idea that we become what we behold, or the things that we love, they shape us. And so, whether or not, the person who comes to the trumpet player already has this personality that fits the trumpet, or how much the trumpet and playing it shapes the personality, and then what gets reinforced with the people that they sit in their section, et cetera.
People they sit next to, how they think. Yeah. Crazy. I have I've been wanting to do like a study or sponsor a study or something for a while, especially now that it's so easy. I mean, you could probably have an algorithm that could do this for $20. Maybe I should stop waiting and just go do it. I have a hunch that people's names tend to attract similar traits as well. Hobbies, careers, attitudes, personalities. And like if you think of all the guys named Rick or Richard, they tend to have similar personality traits. All the girls named Michelle or Tiffany, like they tend to have certain personality traits. They tend to gravitate towards certain careers or fields of work, that kind of thing. And so it seems like it wouldn't be that difficult to just pull out all the first names on Facebook and compare that to the picture. And I mean, just like you have Crystal Knows for LinkedIn that can tell you what type where you're at on the disc chart by looking at your profile, which is fascinating. We could do the same thing for Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever. And one of the reasons I say that is my son, his middle name is Johan, because his mom is Norwegian. And we were kind of going back and forth in the beginning. Should it be spelled with two N's or one? Johann, Johan. Like how should we spell it? And we kind of going back and forth. The musical way that I was familiar with had two N's.
Right, Bach.
But the Norwegian only had one N. And so I was just curious. I went to Facebook and typed in Johan. And if the Johan spelled his name with two N's, he was this pensive, reflective artist. There would be a picture of him on a cliff playing the oboe, or with his painting easel. It was this. But if he spelled his name with one N, he was standing on the cliff with a football. He was standing under a fighter plane. I mean, it was this. Wow, what a difference!
That's amazing. And so, you're drawing out a generalization, which isn't true 100% of the time, but it's generally true, which is why it's a generalization, right? That'd be an amazing thing. Kyle, I think, I've been told means handsome, and Matthew, my middle name, means gift of God. So I guess I'm not trying to say anything. I'm just saying, I'm a handsome gift of God. Yeah, that's hilarious. All right, enough about me. That's awesome, man. Are you born and raised in Colombia?
No, I travel all over. My dad did some military, and then he did some government contracting, and probably spent, I don't know, 20 years in Lubbock, Texas, and spent about 20 years in Columbia, South Carolina, though.
Cool. And how long have you been in Columbia?
I moved to Columbia in 99.
Cool. Okay.
Started my master's. I love the weather. I love the weather.
Yeah.
I love the scenery. Absolutely love. West Texas was not for me.
Is it a little bit more in Columbia? Is it a little more like hilly? Do you guys have mountains out that way, or what is the scenery?
We don't quite have mountains where I'm at. Got to go to the top of the state, close to the North Carolina border, to even get hints of mountains. But it's hilly. It's pretty hilly. Of course, we get a lot of rain. Columbia gets more rain than Seattle does. So very green, very lush. But we have 4 seasons, and I didn't have 4 seasons in Texas.
Really?
It was either like 115 degrees with 40-mile-an-hour winds, or it was 20 degrees with no snow to show for it.
That's the worst.
No snow. If it's going to be cold, I want to see some snow. Yeah.
We get days like that up in Wisconsin. It's like, hey, if it's going to be negative 20, I just give me some white stuff on the ground. Like, let's go make the most of it. Like when it's negative 20, and it's brown outside. I'm like, man, what is life? What's the meaning of life?
It's the worst. When I moved here, I was so because they have trees. Trees. I mean, it's so amazing. And I just remember driving down the interstate, and there's trees on either side. And I'm thinking, this is the most amazing driving experience ever. This is so wonderful. I love it. Wow. All this green, lush trees. And I had this roommate at the time. He's like, I hate it. All those trees, you can't see nothing. Those trees are blocking everything out. I'm thinking, well, you would love where I came from in Texas. I mean, you could stand on a snuff can, watch your dog run away for 3 weeks. It was just flat, no trees.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's not Kyle style. That is not Kyle style. That's awesome. And you got it. Do you say you have a couple kiddos?
I only have one. He's 10.
Yep. Awesome.
Love it.
Yeah.
I very much enjoy being a dad. I know there's a lot of parents out there that seriously don't enjoy being a parent. They do it because society says they have to, and I feel for them. Because I actually enjoy it.
Yeah, it's a gift. It's awesome. Yeah,
very thankful.
And an awesome opportunity, a terrifying privilege, if you will, being able to shape the kid, right? Improve, shape our sons and our daughters, and and then the joy of helping them to go do, greater things in the world than what we maybe could have done. We want them to go further faster than we could, which is cool. So
Maybe I question how much shaping I do. I feel like if anything, at best I can create a safe place for him to explore the world.
Yeah.
A friend of mine had 3 kids, and when I had mine, he was like, "Oh my gosh, this is wonderful because you're a master musician. You'll be able to mold him and shape him, and he's just going to be the greatest musician ever." And I remember thinking, you've got 3 kids. Are you not aware that that's not how kids work? I mean, they kind of come out already bent a certain direction. You can't force them into another direction. You just got to nurture that bend.
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah. And I definitely don't disagree with you. It's funny how we can how we can be jealous for our kids. And yet a tendency we can have is to want to project, or maybe, live vicariously through them. And so with the things that we wish we had done or didn't do, or all that kind of stuff, when we want our kids to go and do, and that can be the wrong way. But yeah, I think in some senses it's almost inescapable how we influence them, and maybe shape's not the right word. But the influence that we can have on our kids' lives, for good or for ill. But yeah, there's a joy of that.
So I was in the orchestra at the time that I had my son.
Yeah.
And people in the orchestra were just like, coming out of the woodwork. So what instrument is he going to play? What instrument is he going to play? And I was like, I don't know. How about we ask him? How about he has a say in it? Maybe he doesn't want to play an instrument at all. Right. We need board members to pay for it. We need audience members to listen to it. How about we let him choose? So I haven't been one to live vicariously through my son. And well, case in point, right? I made my first career as a musician. He wants nothing to do with music. He wants to be in sports. All right. So I'm learning how to watch games and throw balls and hit balls and catch balls and run with balls. And all right, let's do sports. Here we go.
That's awesome. I love it. What is he into?
He is big when it comes to playing basketball and baseball.
Yeah.
He enjoys watching football. He enjoys watching basketball a lot. Favorite team is the Rockets. Favorite football team is the Patriots. It's just a joy. And because he's so into baseball, we play baseball like several days a week.
Awesome.
If Little League doesn't have practice, him and I we're in the batting cages. We're practicing pitching. We're practicing hitting, and it's a joy.
I love it. That's awesome. Yeah, and I'm first and foremost a Packers guy. But Patriots are my second favorite team. I think what they've done. I mean, you talk about performance. I mean, what they've built out from an organizational perspective, just to dominate 20 years of sports, is just fantastic. So
they're
much
like
there.
The New York Yankees of football.
Yeah. And maybe that'd actually be a good pivot, in talking a little bit now about what you do. So we're talking about performance. You mentioned, earlier, that not only in your own life, but in the lives of those that you help to coach, or your clients, or however you would think of them, you've helped to cut down their working time in half, and yet double their income, which is phenomenal. So I'd love to hear tactically, practically, what is it that you do, and break that down for us. And then how did you get there? How did you get to where you are today, doing what you do, and obviously loving helping folks really optimize their productivity and performance?
So what do? I teach them how to think at a higher level. The end result is they see things that they couldn't see before. And that's why they're able to double their income and cut their labor in half. Because if you're in a corn maze, when you get to the end of the row, you're not sure if you can go left or right. I mean, you could guess, but it turns out that in business, guessing is the most expensive thing you can do. Now imagine you're in the corn maze. You're like, I'm not sure if I should go left or right. Some people solve that problem by running. And then the theory is, if I made a wrong decision, I'll discover it faster and I can double back faster. But what if you just stood on a ladder, like stood on a step ladder. And so you're only 3 feet higher, but now you can see the whole maze. Now there's no mystery to it. Now you know exactly what to do. Now you know exactly why that last decision, didn't work out, and exactly what the right decision is to get there. And that might sound dumb, like, well, duh, of course, like that's not special. Here's what's special. It's the difference between your eye level being 3 feet higher. That is a very insignificant shift, but it happens to be the shift that changes everything.
Hmm.
So by teaching people how to think at a higher level about solving problems in their business, it causes them to see the blind spots that were tripping them up before and where their next breakthrough is.
Hmm.
Would we have to talk about like how we do that, or case studies, or application, or whatever?
Yeah, dig into it. Yeah, I mean, yeah, feel free to double down on that. I mean, that's intriguing to me. I'm sure, a lot of our listeners and other guests, I mean, they themselves are entrepreneurs, leaders, public figures, or aspiring to such. They're aspiring to be bigger things. And so, I mean, the idea of performance is, I would think key to them. So anything you want to unpack, I mean, yeah, stories, all that kind of stuff would be great. You even mentioned you did that personally as a musician, right?
Yes.
In the gig world.
Yes.
Yeah, it'd be cool. Yeah. Double click on that.
I guess I would start by acknowledging that the claim does sound like snake oil. It does sound like clickbait. As a matter of fact, it sounds so much like a scam that if I run a Facebook ad with that on my website, not even in the ad, but on the website that the ad links to, Facebook will close my account down.
Wow.
And I have to have it petitioned to be renewed because Facebook is totally convinced that it's multi-level marketing or work from home or get rich quick or misleading claims or so like I get it. It really does sound like snake oil. It really does. I ask, bear with me. We'll give you a few illustrations. If after these illustrations it still sounds like snake oil, hey, we gave it a good run. All right. The first one was the corn maze.
Yeah.
When you think at a higher level, suddenly everything changes. Imagine doing that for your business. Mm-hmm. Second illustration is your car. Anytime you accidentally back into something, notice that you don't keep backing into it. You get out of your car, because by getting out of your car, you are physically changing your vantage point, just like the corn maze. By physically changing your vantage point, you're able to see something that you couldn't see before. But in life, that's not how we solve problems. Something doesn't work, we keep doing it. We say, oh, well, I need to try harder or do more of it or do it faster or whatever. You have that conversation with your spouse or business partner or whatever. Conversation tanks and you're like, well, I just need to explain to them better. That tanks. You're like, well, what I need to do is say it more off. That tanks, right? We don't do it like the car. Change your vantage point. It opens up everything. You think, well, but how do I change my vantage point? Glad you asked. Wherever you're at, there's three things going on. If you keep getting to the end of the year, you didn't hit your goals, and you say to yourself, well, next year I'm going to try harder. And then next year rolls around and you're like, no, that wasn't fair. Do over. Next year I'm really going to try it. Right. You get in that cycle. It's not because you're not trying hard. So whatever it is you're trying to do, if you don't have enough time, don't have enough money, don't have enough support, whatever it is, you're already doing everything you know to do. So let's just acknowledge that trying harder isn't going to get you there, or it would have by now. You're not lacking effort or skill or knowledge. This is the age of Google, for crying out loud. You have access to all the knowledge you could ever want for free. Second thing, the things that you're trying to break through, to level up, they all seem like good ideas. They all make sense. They're rational, they're logical, they're well thought out. You're a smart person. What that means is your breakthrough will at first sound like a really bad idea. Because if it made sense to do, you'd already be doing it. So how does the brain think of the thing that it doesn't make sense? It can't. I mean, that's like trying to imagine that you're not an above average driver. That's like trying to imagine that you're wrong about your religious or political views. Like the brain doesn't work that way, but that's where your breakthrough is.
Hmm.
So the way we do that, at least in my line of work, is we use the Nobel nominated mind scan. This is based on the algorithm that Robert Hartman came up with in the 50s. They used to do this process with pencil and paper and slide rules and all that. But thankfully now we're able to digitize it. And what the mind scan does is it prints up a graph of your thinking patterns. Back to that corn maze in the car illustration, you
Yeah.
have to physically move your vantage point, and that's how you see what you couldn't see before. So by printing up your thinking patterns, you're able to get out of your own head.
Hmm.
And you'll see right away, it only takes about 10 or 15 minutes to get that graph printed up. But you are able to see right away where the blind spot is that's been tripping you up, like why that thing that makes so much sense to do is actually the reason that you keep getting stuck. And why that thing that doesn't make sense is actually the reason that's going to get you there the fastest. You see your breakthrough, you see the blind spots. It is as unique as you are. It's like a fingerprint of your thinking patterns. So when somebody comes to us and we work with them, they double their income by working half as many hours. It all starts with what's going on in their thinking patterns right now. Just like you go to the doctor, you say, "Oh, it hurts here." The doctor doesn't go, "Well, here, take some of these and let me know what happens." The doctor says, "I don't know what's going on. Let's roll you down the hallway, print up an MRI. Let's take a picture of what's going on, and then we'll know how to treat you."
Yeah.
So the same thing with performance.
Hey, thank you so much for listening. If you haven't already, and only if you think the show deserves it, would you go over to Apple Podcasts and give us an honest, thoughtful 5-star review? This will really help us in our mission to equip the world for success.
That's awesome. That's fascinating. I love the pictures too. You're saying I'm taking notes over here, so if you see me looking down, because I'm scribbling. Yeah, so think at a higher level, and that means raise your line of sight, and that's where you have the maze imagery. Like you just get your line of sight higher, right? But that's not it. You also need to get out of the car, which means changing your vantage point. So, and then breaking that down. I loved what you said about trying harder doesn't work, and sometimes when we think about that, we I don't know if the right word is maybe we beat up ourselves thinking how incapable we are or not good enough. And you're saying it might not it could be that, maybe we're just, being lazy or we're not actually doing the work or whatever it might be. But what you're saying, it also could be the fact that, hey, what you're doing a good job. You're trying really, really hard. You're doing the right things. But something's not working. Right. And trying harder at those things isn't going to fix the problem. And where that gets us into the idea of we got to actually get out of the car. We got to see how we're even approaching the situation in the first place. And that's where some of those breakthroughs are going to come because, and we need, in a sense, like a validation to help us know that these breakthroughs that we have, they're not actually crazy. Like they actually make sense. And I wonder how much that has to do with with the, is it the limbic brain that is the more of like the emotional, and when the cortex is the more rational, et cetera, and how folks are inspired or our decision-making process is wrapped up more in the limbic brain. It's kind of, that would make sense to me. How we doubt ourselves when we have these ideas that in one sense we're like, oh, this is it. This is the breakthrough. And they're like, but that can never be, and it just gets dismissed. Am I kind of tracking with you here?
Yes. The brain tends to make decisions and we only become aware of them way after the fact. So what you would consider to be your conscious mind is way after your brain has already decided. It's decided this is the best course of action. This is what you should do next. So when you're like, ooh, I'm kind of hungry. Well, duh, your brain figured that out 5 minutes ago. And that's why it's letting you know that you're hungry because it needs more stuff. Go get the stuff. The fascinating stuff there. There was one study with, of course, Sam Harris is bringing great research now with consciousness and the illusion of consciousness and the illusion of choice and free will, and just how far behind your sense of agency is from decisions that were already made, and the researchers can tell well in advance what you're going to choose based on what's going on in your brain that you're not even aware of. But one study I thought was kind of cool. They took seasoned gamblers, people that play poker for a living or whatever, and they put a stack of cards in front of them, 2 stacks, a red stack and a blue stack. Now the gamblers did not know this, but one stack, the red stack, was rigged so that over time it would be big wins and big losses. But over time, the losses would outweigh the wins. The blue stack was rigged so that it was small wins and small losses. But over time, the wins would outweigh the losses over time. And so the gamblers would freely choose, turn over red or blue. And what they were looking for is how many cards did the gambler have to turn over before they had a hunch which deck was the winner. How long did it take them to figure that out? One of the things that they would monitor is some of the biorhythms in the gambler, eye blinking, breathing, perspiration, a particular perspiration on the palm. What they found was that the palm would start to perspire like 7 to 10 cards before the gambler stopped and said, I think the blue deck is the winner. They would move their hand over the red deck. The palm would start to perspire way before the gambler started to catch on that the red deck was, their nervous system was way far ahead of the game. Took them all to catch up. So fascinating stuff there. But yes, get your thinking patterns mapped out on paper. You'll be able to see your next breakthrough in life right away.
That is amazing. And so then it seems like, I guess, just to follow the logic, we'd want to be focusing on how we feed our subconscious mind.
That's an option.
Is that the right way to think about it?
That's certainly an option. And there's thankfully lots of great ways to do that.
Yeah.
What I would say though is the fastest way to do that is by changing your beliefs. People try to change their subconscious mind, or they try to change their limiting beliefs, or they try to change their habits or whatever. And they try to do it by willpower or discipline or effort or force. They try to do it by meditating. They try to do it by affirmations. They try to do it by writing down positive statements or reading positive books, or I'm just going to force this positive stuff in and eventually I'll be positive. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. But it doesn't work. And as you might have experienced, as you're forcing this stuff in, your brain's going bullshit. So the issue isn't the thoughts that you're having. It's not like controlling your thoughts. The issue is becoming more aware of your fundamental beliefs, your fundamental beliefs about the world. And there's ways to figure those out. And there's ways to switch them out and get beliefs in there that serve you better and allow you to serve others at a higher level. But as far as dealing with the subconscious, I would say start with the belief.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's fascinating. And is this also part of the scope of work that you guys do?
It is. Some people, they go through the mind scan and they're like, cool, thanks for this information. I know how to do this. Like, I know how to make these changes in my thinking. Some people go to the mind scan and they're like, whoa, dude, don't leave me hanging. How do I implement this stuff? Man, I could really, change the world and my family. And I mean, how do I implement this stuff? And so what we do is we take them through a series of mindset push-ups, just like a real push-up. The act of the push, like physically rewires your nervous system. It rewires the way your body responds to things. It rewires your response time. It rewires your brain. And yes, it also builds muscle, but that's just a byproduct of all the other amazing things that the exercise is doing to your body. So the same thing with your mind. If you want to get stronger, you don't have somebody else do push-ups for you. You don't watch somebody do push-ups. You don't read books about push-ups or listen to audio about push-ups, right? You do the push-ups, okay? So the same thing with mindset push-ups. The push causes your brain to rewire itself. In order to solve those problems, it has to start accessing different parts of your brain and thinking from different vantage points, and that's how you're able to start thinking at a higher level. Back to music. Some people don't know this about music, but when you're engaged in music, even if you're just clapping your hands along the radio, singing in the shower or whatever, in that moment that you're engaged in participating, actively participating, creating, clapping, whatever, you're accessing more different parts of your brain than any other activity. This is a strong contrast with, say, athletic behavior, where the better your body is performing as an athlete, the less of your brain you're using. It enters a meditative state, because in order to perform better as an athlete, you can't afford for glucose to be going to the brain. You need more glucose going towards the muscle, so the brain quiets down. But to be performing better as a musician, you need more of that going towards, math and science and art and creativity and prediction, because you're predicting in the future and you're comparing with what happened in the past and you're in the present, all this stuff at the same time. So being able to do that for your business opens up a lot of new opportunities.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So I mentioned before, and I don't recall if this is on air or off, but I'm a musician, songwriter, etc. And I played shows where, after the show, like I was, and the way I've always talked about it was, you have so much mental energy that goes into it, that it leaves you physically exhausted. And as far as what you're saying, the connection or the science behind that makes total sense now. Even where the glucose is going, over against, feeling them, like in sports, feeling the muscles, right? With some mind quiets down, you go into that flow state. Music, it's vice versa. It's the glucose going to the brain. It's a crazy thing. But have you experienced that in your performances?
I have.
Yeah.
I have. I mean, if it's a good performance and I'm on,
yeah.
If I'm not stuck in my head, yeah, absolutely, it is. There is a exhaustive drain. Yes.
Yeah, that's phenomenal, man. Very, very cool. Very, very fascinating stuff. Okay, so have you always known that you wanted to get into this, or do you stumble across this one day? Did you have someone that you went to that helped you to learn how to think or map out your thinking, and then help with your performance, or like kind of take us on that a little bit of that journey timeline, how you got to where you are today?
So I started in music. I come from a family of entrepreneurs. I mean,
Cool.
My dad was self-employed. My mom was self-employed. My sister's self-employed. She owns several businesses. My brother's self-employed. I mean, I was just, so either we're unemployable, incapable of holding down a job, or we've just always gravitated towards creating work.
Right.
If we need money, we don't think to apply to get money. We just knock on doors. Hey, I see you have this need. I have this service. Would you like to trade? We just create commerce. And so that led to music. And so I was playing in the symphony and teaching lessons and playing weddings and stuff like that. Hopefully we'll get back to how I doubled my income and cut my labor there, because anybody in any field can do the same thing. And I'd love to see them doing that. So then I was there, and then one day I saw somebody speaking, and I didn't even know that was a thing. I didn't know you could do that. I was what? That's a thing? You get paid for it? I was just blown away. So I was doing music because I couldn't not do music. I didn't feel like I had a choice. Everything else was miserable, not even close. I had to do music. I was compelled. I had that inner had to do it. So then from there, I went into speaking. I was at the time speaking on the musical secrets of leadership, musical secrets of productivity, that kind of thing, teaching people the different exercises, how to access different parts of their brain, how to think and leverage the different intelligences and be a better leader, communicator, product, whatever. So I did that. And then I was at a conference and a guy came and said, "Hey, have you ever tried the mind scan?" Like, no. And so I took the mind scan, and what are you kidding? Oh my gosh. The mind scan was the missing link
Hmm.
in the work that I had been doing, because it allowed the end user to see what was happening.
Hmm.
I no longer needed to explain to them. They could just try it for themselves and see what was happening. So then that led to the mind scan. And now all of the work I do is funneled through that.
Yeah. So awesome. Yeah. Yeah. I've heard it said, for those that are the creative type or have musical abilities, that it's a curse. As far as it's not generally speaking, it's not where you can make the most money. A lot of times people say, well, you can't make a living in music, and I'm excited to hear that story, because you can, especially I think in our day and age where technology has leveled the playing field for so many things.
Mm-hmm.
There's a great opportunity across the board, but I think it was Jordan Peterson who recently talked about how creative types, it can be a hard go, but exactly how you articulated it, you had to do it. You were compelled to do it. Your life would be miserable if you didn't use it. Yeah. That's awesome.
I do hope people listen to this podcast and make it this far, because whether you're in business, whatever field you're in, I guarantee you have this belief that you could be like somebody else if you had what they had.
Mm.
So if it's business and they are more successful, they own more stores or more employees, or they ship more units or whatever it is, and you say to yourself, well, yeah, I could do that too if I had their marketing budget. I could do that too if I had their team. I could do that too if I had their confidence, if I had their whatever it is. Okay. And the same thing happens in music. Sometimes people, if they don't play music, you might have experienced this many times yourself, where they come up and they say, oh, wow, I wish I was talented. I wish I was talented like you. I wish I could do that. And as a musician, looking from the other way, it's not talent. Like, there isn't really even talent. I understand what people mean by talent. And like people who are like uber successful in business, that own multiple businesses, and they say, like, if I had your confidence, it's the same thing. Like, I get what they're saying. I wish I had I understand, but it's not a thing. It's not real. There is no talent. You either spend time developing the skills or you don't. There's a famous saying by the pianist Horowitz, when the lady came to him and said, "Oh my gosh, I would give half my life to be able to play like that." And he was like, "Well, my lady, I did. I did give half my life to play this way." So there is no talent. What there is an interest and a willingness.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said earlier, people play music because they can't not. It's a mental illness. Like, they can't not do it. That's all they had. They had an interest in the subject and a willingness to put in the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same for business. You have an interest in that industry and a willingness to keep making the phone calls.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, I love it, man. And a little different way of saying, because I think the next line of thought would say, great, how do I find that thing? Right? How do I find the thing that I'm actually interested in? And I think sometimes in our day and age, it's all right, well, there's always two ditches, right? But yeah, I think in this kind of trifecta of what are you good at, what do you enjoy, and what are your economic opportunities? And if by finding the sweet spot there, the things that we're drawn to, we're leaning into things that we are naturally inclined to, that we might already have developed a little bit, or have a propensity towards, and or even if we haven't developed anything, we at least are interested enough that we, like you said, are willing to want to develop it, and we have economic opportunity. Otherwise, it would just be a hobby. And even for the things that might not be apparent of saying, I don't know how I'd monetize this, that doesn't mean that you couldn't, right? So it means actually getting creative and seeing how you can, when you marry what you're good at with what you enjoy doing, I think people would be surprised at opportunities that could come economically from that. Yeah, man, and it would seem like if for people to not just enjoy life, but to actually from like a performance standpoint, like really maximize um, what they're able to do from a potential or a capacity standpoint. It seems like they'd be minimizing that by doing something they're not very good at or don't really enjoy. And it seems like maybe there's a lot of people that find themselves in that place in life.
Mm-hmm.
Do you come across folks like that in your line of work?
Oh, yeah. One of the amazing things about the mind scan is what it reveals that you're good at and not good at. I see so many times people majoring in something that is very important to them, but it's not their natural genius.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you cannot make a difference in your clumsy. You have to be in your genius. Even high level people, like had this one guy, he's making $400,000 a year. He's a financial planner, takes the mind scan. And one of the things it revealed is that he was discounting the importance of his genius, his sweet spot. You'd think at 400,000, very high functioning. What are we going to show him? He doesn't already know. Well, he restructures his day to honor his zone of genius because you can't make a difference in your clumsy. He begins to leverage that more, stops treating all tasks as equal or all tasks as those that he's capable of, stops that business, starts to leverage sweet spot, makes a change with his office administrator so she could help hold him accountable, keep him in his sweet spot. That change took him from 400,000 to 1.2 million over the next year and a half. That's the power of getting really, really clear on the thing that you do the best. I've had people come in and I'm going through their breakthrough map and I get to the spot. I'm like, I think, you could be experiencing this and you're probably experiencing that. And they're like, yeah, I am. Yeah, I am. How'd you know? I was like, well, it kind of also indicates this. They're like, yeah, how'd you know? I say, man, because of that, I would imagine that you're not really happy in your job. You've never been happy in your job. And because it's all you've ever known, you're trying to convince yourself that maybe this is just as good as it gets. They're like, yeah. I'm like, well, that's not the case. There's a job out there that will light you up. Let's get you in there.
All right. I want to know who's next. Who do you want to hear on what not to do? Which entrepreneur, which leader, which public figure in your network do you want to hear on the show? Maybe it's you. Maybe you need to be here. So let's connect me with whomever, and we'll sit down for coffee, a beer, or even a cigar, and together equip the world for success.
Man, yeah. Where did we go wrong? Like, why do we have the issue in our day and age of so many people in a spot where they're so unhappy?
I think it starts in childhood.
Yeah.
Part of being a child is having large, tall aliens that make the rules.
Yeah.
That tell you and train you to deny your truth. Sometimes they do it well-meaning. Like they might say, say you're sorry. Say you're sorry. Say you're sorry. I mean, they're well-meaning. You want kids who grow up into the world that are considerate of those around them. But saying you're sorry when you don't have a level of awareness of what's going on just teaches you to deny your truth. The level of awareness is more important. And that's a little bit harder to teach. Or they go out and it's like, eat everything on your plate, eat everything on your plate, eat everything on your plate. But like you really hate the way it tastes.
Yeah.
And there could be other foods that would bring a similar benefit. If the issue is vegetables or nutrients or whatever it is, there could be other ways to do that. But you are trained from a very early age to deny and repress your truth. Be like them. You should be like them, not like that. Like this, not like that. So as we get older, and I mean, I don't know how many times you heard as a kid, well, in the real world, right? In the real world. So you get older and you're following the path that everybody else follows. And so you go to college and you get married and you have kids. And next thing you know, you got the golden handcuffs on. Well, someone's got to go to work. I don't have a choice. I guess I just got to go. That's just as good as it gets. Gotta be realistic here. Gotta be real. Can't live in the sky. I've lost count of the times people have told me, Jarrod, that's not realistic. Can't just live out there in unicorn land. Can't live out there in the sky. You got to join us here in reality. Well, knock yourself out, kiddo, because I get to look out a wonderful window and live a beautiful life all day long.
Mm-hmm.
And you have that choice too. I'm sorry. I'll shut up. Why do you think? That's a legit question. Why do you think we fall off that wagon? What do you think's going on?
Well, something happens in between 5 and 25, right? So you get this 5-year-old and they're going to go conquer the world. They're going to go take over the world. And they're, no 5-year-old wants to stay in their bedroom, right? All day long. They want to get out and they want to play, right? And they take them, whatever object they can get their hands on, they turn it into something completely, it's amazing. And then it seems like somewhere between 5 and 25, by the time they get to 25, they're very much, programmed into a very like a small mindset. Like, this is how the world works and it only works in this way, or here are my only options in life. So I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure if it's like an educational thing to where it's like people are being more like taught how to just like fit into the machine here, rather than saying like, I could build the machine. Right. Or they're taught maybe to be the employee, but not the employer. Somewhere along the way, it seems like the mindset, the imagination is being squashed and kind of molded into one thing in such a way that it cements and says you can only be this one thing. Like, this is the only option you have. So go get a job after college. And, for instance, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, we live for the weekends, 18 years of our life, right? Going to school. So we can go, to college Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 and live for the weekends. Right. And so we can go get a job Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 and live for the weekends. And it seems like that's what's being reinforced, where if you try to introduce a new option or a new mindset or a new possibility aside from that, people think it's a scam. People think it's get rich quick. People think that's not really possible. And yet people are doing it. People are building businesses, right? I mean, they kind of don't see like, hey, I work in a job, but someone started this company once upon a time and they didn't do it by going 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, living for the weekends. You know what I'm saying? And it seems like we need a more, I don't know what the solution is aside from maybe also re-educating in a lot of ways of options in life, and also helping folks to see or have a bigger mindset to dream bigger. Because again, like you talk to that 5-year-old, they're going to take over the world. At 25, they're happy just with Netflix and video games and whatever it might be, or just kind of getting by, or maybe they're a bit more ambitious and they found a good job and they're trying to climb the corporate ladder. But to your point earlier, are they actually doing what they're good at and what they enjoy, right? In a way that can actually serve the world really well, right? Mm-hmm. Or have they given up on themselves? Or from an educational standpoint, have they actually gotten the tools to learn the rest of their lives? Or have they just memorized a bunch of stuff that they're going to try to apply? Like, do they see, like, is education finite or is it infinite? Right. And it seems like for a lot of folks, it's finite. It stops after college. They learn what they need to know, and maybe they'll have some continuing education courses here and there, but they're not really actually trying to develop and cultivate their skills and abilities, their capacity, the potential as a person in this world. As long as you fog a mirror, we should be doing that, right? You know what I'm saying? But it seems like we give up on ourselves really, really early in life. So I don't know. That's a few of my ramblings. Might be the coffee talking, but
I like what you said about school. In a way, does condition us to not like the vast waking hours during the day. It kind of does condition us. Very few people are happy to be at school. Understandable. Boys need to move around. They need to break stuff and build stuff and destroy stuff. But in order to do well at school, you have to sit still, be quiet.
Yeah, it doesn't mean they have ADD because they they have the energy. You know what I'm saying? Like, sometimes we're so quick to want to just say like, "Oh, they have some kind of problem." Well, no, not necessarily. Maybe we need to give them more options where they can, unleash that energy.
Yeah, and then poor girls, they're stuck in a class with boys dominating the conversation and always getting in trouble and distracted from the teacher
and breaking things, and yeah.
And so, geez, maybe I'm sounding parochial here, but I think there could be a case for split gender education. Let them learn in the environment that really is best for them.
Yeah. And that's actually what I meant before earlier. That's a good way to say it when I talked about how a parent shapes or influences the child. It's like that environment, like what I didn't mean is like that, the parent tries to, like in your example, like forcibly, you will do this and you will be a master musician, but how environment matters, and then even how our environment allows us to see or not see things. Like even in the maze, right? That's an environment, and we see a certain thing until we step up on that footstool, get 3 feet up, have our line of sight raised, and now we see something different. Our environment changed, and that influences us. We see more. We can see options. We can see differences, and I think helping to give our kids an environment that has more of an infinite context rather than a finite, like it's not this box. It's like, what box? You know what I'm saying? Like, there are so many more options than just this. Right. Yeah.
I had some kind of major influences there. I remember I was probably 26, maybe 26. And I was at a friend of mine's house. He was a home builder. And I don't know if I was borrowing a tool or something because I was doing a lot of construction at that time. But I was at his house. He was sitting at his dining room table. He had like 4 kids or whatever, and a couple of them were really small. He's sitting at his dining room table, and he's got the plans out for this new project. And he's in talks with this builder and new homeowner and developer and all this stuff. And like they're hashing through this multi-million-dollar project, all serious grown-up stuff, right? And his like 3-year-old comes in the room, runs right into the meeting, totally interrupts everything. Like, daddy, daddy, daddy. And this guy, he stopped the meeting right away. He goes, I'm sorry, guys, hold on. Looks at his son and goes, hey, pal, what's going on? What do you need? And dad, kid shows him the dinosaur or whatever it is, picks his son up, sets him in his lap, spends 15 seconds talking about the dinosaur. Oh yeah, wow, man, that's super cool. Wow, great dinosaur. Hey, thanks so much. All right, I'm going to get back to this meeting. Kid goes on, he's totally happy. That like crashed my brain. I didn't even have a folder to process what I just saw. This guy in the middle of this serious grown-up stuff, telling the grown-ups, I'm sorry, hold on, give me a minute. My son needs my attention. Mm-hmm. That I had never seen anything like that in my life. It was very much an influential moment that kind of thing even existed.
Yeah. I love it. Man. Yeah. Well, so let's do this. Let's get into the story of you as a musician doubling your income, cutting your hours in half. Tell us the story.
Let's do it. Rock and roll. And what I'm going to share applies to any industry, any field. So don't think, well, I'm not a musician. That doesn't apply to me. Also, what I'm going to share is an example of the type of opportunities that come up when somebody takes the mind scan and looks on paper at how they've been trying to solve problems so that they can start to see the opportunities they've been missing.
Yeah.
Okay, so there I was in music, and I was playing in the symphony, playing weddings, teaching lessons. I was tired of feeling like I was working all the time, but didn't have any money. I was tired of not making the money that I needed. And if I could just talk about that for a little bit, there is kind of a minimum amount that's required to function. Okay. Where I think there is a place for I need more money. Now that could be a really wide gray line. And at some point, it's no longer appropriate to say I need more money. And I don't know where that is for society today in 2020, but I believe there is a point that it's okay to say, I genuinely need more money.
Show me the money.
Got to provide for my family.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can't do that if my car doesn't run. I can't. There is a minimum threshold, whatever that is. And so there I was like upset. I felt like I was doing the work, but I wasn't making the money. I wasn't getting the results that I wanted. If you get nothing else out of this podcast interview, please take away this one concept. The less you work, the more you make. The less you work. So whatever you're at, if you're trying to make more money, if you're trying to have more free time, whatever the thing is, solve that problem through the lens of how can I work less hours but cause more of this to get done? How can I get this done without me personally doing it? How can I both not personally do it and still profit and still have the money that I need? Like, start to think that way. It'll change your life. Okay, in my case, I was teaching lessons one-on-one. The first change that I made is I stopped trading my time for dollars and I started changing results for dollars. So, I mean, parents were coming to me. They didn't necessarily care about me or my time. They just wanted their kids to be happy and their kids to get better. So it's up to me to create that. There's lots of ways you can do this. Now, I understand you might not teach music lessons. You do have knowledge. You do have knowledge that can help other people. If you are a barista or whatever, you probably know something about making coffee that's good. You probably know something about customer service that causes them to come back. You probably know something about managing a shop or employees or supplies or whatever. You have knowledge. So the first question is, how can other people learn from you in a way that doesn't require your time? You could put a PDF they can download. You could do a video series. You could hold a seminar. You could give speeches. You could write a book. You could do group lessons. Well, when you go to the doctor doesn't check you in, doesn't schedule, reschedule, answer questions about the medicine. Sometimes they do, I guess. Take your vitals, take your payment, your billing. The doctor doesn't do any of that. The doctor only comes in for the one thing that the doctor's needed for. So what I did is I would put my students in a hallway and I would go from room to room to room like the doctor does. They don't need me to unpack their instrument or pack it back up. They don't need me to tune. They don't need me to warm up. They don't, right? So let them do that. And then I show up for what's needed. So I would show up for a little bit. They would play. I'd play with them. We'd practice. We'd role play. I'd give them the exercise they need to do to get better with that passage. I'd show them how to practice that. I'd leave the room. Well, now they're on the hot seat because I'm about to come back in the room and they got to have something to show for it. This one move allowed me to double my teaching income without charging more money or spending more time. How cool is that? Everybody wins. Everybody wins. And it was so amazing that I had parents thanking me, saying, I wish my piano teacher was like this. I wish my trumpet teacher was like this, because if they were, I would still be playing. The benefit of the particular thing that I did was I acknowledged that nobody's learning while I'm talking. They're learning while they're trying to do the work. You don't learn how to ride a bicycle by watching someone else ride it. You just got to get on the bike, right? And in music, if you haven't had music lessons, there's this misery that happens where your teacher asks you to try to do something, and your teacher instantly forgets that there was a time in their life that it was their first time too. And so you go to do the thing, and of course you screw it up, and your teacher realizes you're about to screw it up, so they stop you even before you have done your first attempt, and they're like, no, like this, right? And it's just sort of, God, give me a chance to at least you fail. I mean, I got to learn. So they could make all those mistakes without me in the room. No pressure. Parents absolutely loved it. So first step, take your knowledge, give people access to it in a way that doesn't require more time on your behalf. Group lessons, doctor model, YouTube videos, live seminars, whatever it is, no care. Second thing, as you are sharing your knowledge, your students are going to need equipment and supplies. Well, what I used to do is my students would come to me and they'd say, hey, we've got some extra money burning a hole in our pocket. Where should we take it? And I would say, oh, gosh, don't give me your extra money. Take it down to the music or give it to them. Well, I stopped that nonsense. I spent 15 minutes to fill out a retail license. I called up the music distributors and said, hey, I've got some kids who want your stuff. They're like, great, we'll send it over. So then, when a student would come in and say, hey, what kind of music stand do I need? Or what kind of sheet music? Or what kind of instrument? I would say, come back next week, I'll have one for you. So I became the direct supplier. Well, in our day and age, that is ridiculous. You don't have to warehouse, you don't have to inventory, none of that. All you need is like a drop ship account or an affiliate link. Mm-hmm. That's all you need. So let's back to the coffee example. You've got a PDF or an article or a video series or a group seminar setup or whatever it is. And so that your students are learning from you. Well, while they're learning from you, what's the best kind of espresso machine? What's the best kind of grinder? What's the best kind of coffee supplier? What's the best kind of apron maker? Best kind of stool maker? Whatever it is. Your students are going to want access to the stuff that you're using. So you make it available with Amazon affiliate links or customer distributor agreements or whatever it is. Second thing, let them buy the stuff through you, for crying out loud. Third thing, stop doing the work, start booking the work. What I was doing as a musician is I was playing weddings. Well, there's a very hard limit on the number of weddings I can play. So I can't make more money by playing more weddings. There's a limit, okay? So I started booking weddings. Well, now there's no limit on the number of weddings I can book because I just hire other musicians to play it. So time was no longer the limit on my income. Back to the barista. You are giving students access to your knowledge, whether it's helping customers or marketing or advertising or whatever it is. You're giving them access to the equipment that you use, that you've learned works best over the years, and you're compensated a little bit for facilitating that transaction. And then you're booking opportunities for them. So they are growing up, getting better, practicing your training and getting the result. So now when you hold your next How to Grow $1 Million Coffee Shop seminar, one of your students can teach it for you. Now your time is no longer the factor. Now, when one of the people in the seminar raises their hand that says, hey, would you coach me privately? I'm willing to pay you $500 or $1,000 a month or whatever. Just coach me privately on how to do that. One of your students can do the coaching for you. Your time's no longer the factor. And this applies whether you are a truck driver or a doctor or a nurse or a podcaster, right? Doesn't matter. Take your time out of the equation. The less you work, the more you make.
Well, it is one of my main goals to give you more in use value than what I take from you in cash value. And so, man, I love that this podcast is for free. And I really hope that you are finding just incredible value. Who knows, maybe in one of these episodes, you'll take an idea that will be worth $1 million to you. And that's so awesome. If you believe in this and what we're doing here and you'd like to give, you can go to patreon.com/whatnotttodo and you can give according to your heart's desire. But seriously, every little bit helps in our mission to equip the world for success. Thank you so much.
Love it. Oh man, love it. So good. Yeah. I love, you said earlier too, and you just said it again. If there's one thing to take away from this, it's this: the less you work, the more you make. And people automatically, hands up, get rich quick scheme, whatever it is, it's false. But man, like as you're working through it, you're telling your story. Your word earlier was snake oil, right? And I mean, if people are still thinking that this is snake oil, like maybe they're the snake. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe, everyone loves their own brand, right? What is that, Austin Powers, or whatever it is?
Yeah.
It's just like, you know what I'm saying? Like maybe they're the ones who are getting duped. Maybe they are the snake. That's why they love the snake oil. That's why they always smell the snake oil. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, that's awesome, man. You may have touched on this, but well, we talked a little bit off air, but I'm going to ask you why you do what you do. When you get up out of bed every morning, and you are helping folks to work less and make more, which sounds like pie in the sky, right? But if you experienced it yourself, you've given a couple great examples of what you've done for other folks. I don't know anyone that would complain about going from $400 to $1.2 million in a year and a half. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know a lot of folks that would complain about making 400 to start with. You know what I'm saying? But so what is it within you that keeps you getting up and giving your life to this type of thing?
It's that mental illness. I can't not do it.
Yeah. You're sick.
And
You're twisted.
I'm sick. I have to honor the call. I have to create. I have to be true to the whatever the gifts or skill set, or again, I don't want to use the word talent, but that combination of an interest and a willingness to put in the time. I have to be true to honor that. I can't not. When I'm not creating, when I'm not speaking, when I'm not coaching, when I'm not writing the next book, when I'm not designing the next campaign or whatever, I die inside. I feel a loss of freedom, a loss of power, a loss of self-expression. So what I would say is, if you miss the first thing, which is the less you work, the more you make, the second thing is sharing your life is saving your life. If you are feeling that loss of freedom or loss of power, loss of self-expression, and you're like, well, it's this marriage. Well, it's this job. Well, it's my kids aren't out of school yet. Well, it's my health. Well, whatever it is, sharing your life is saving your life. Here's why. You have that itch, that inkling, that whatever it is, to write the book, to start the summer camp for kids, to get the LLC, to whatever it is. You have that thing that has itched at you, that creative idea, that desire to create, contribute to the world, and you've squashed it. You've said, well, now's the right time. Well, that's just not realistic. Well, once I get over being sick, well, once my kids are out of school, blah, blah, blah. That squashing is what is killing you. That's what's giving you that loss of freedom, power, and self-expression. It's not, I don't have the money or I don't have the time. It's not honoring that voice inside you. So whatever that voice is, I don't care if it's to paint your toenails red, doesn't matter. Honoring that voice restores your sense of power and freedom and self-expression.
Yeah, that's good. What are your thoughts on why we don't honor that voice?
Because of those stupid reasons I mentioned. Fail forward, screw it up.
Yeah,
but honor the voice.
Yeah, that gets at the heart of this. I think one of the hopes of my podcast here is for folks that are listening, for folks to hear exactly what you just said, right? Is to honor the call. And I think most of us, whether or not we've trained ourselves to not listen or to become deaf to it or desensitized to it, it's still there and it bugs us. It pokes us at night. It haunts us at night even. And I love what you just said about from your own perspective, but I think you could extend that call to others as answer the call, honor the call, right, within you. Or the way you said it, I can't not, right? I can't not do that. And I think people have to come to a point in their own lives where they come to that and they can say that for the first time, I can't not. I can't not do this. I have to do this. I have to do this. And it seems like that's that initial breakthrough point for them to actually start going in the right direction, where they're going to see things maybe go better for them, generally speaking. It doesn't mean that they're not going to fail. They're not going to have mistakes, et cetera. And we're going to get in that here shortly as far as looking back on your career. But it seems to me that if we can wake people up to that, mission accomplished, right? It'll be a huge thing for people to see something, to raise their line of sight, head above water for the first time, in a sense. So it's great. Yeah. Main segment, man. Right, wrong, and different. So you've shared so much good stuff. So as you're looking back over the course of your career to date, personally and professionally, what are a few things that come to mind as far as like, hey, this is a great decision I made. This is a great choice. It really set me up for success, here.
Some breaks were usually around answering the call, like that voice.
Yeah.
Hey, if you went to that conference, it would really change things for you. Hey, if you invested in that training, seminar, coach, whatever, it would really change things for you. And anytime you're on the threshold of making a choice like that, it's always scary. You're like, oh, I don't have the money. Oh, it's not the right time. Oh, whatever. Well, life isn't calling you to step up because you already have the resources. If you had the resources, there would be no stepping up. Life's calling you to step up because stepping up is what creates the resources.
Say that again.
Life isn't calling you to step up to something higher because you already have the resources. You have the time, you have the money, you have the relationships. It's calling you to step up to something higher because that's what creates the resources.
Yeah, that is so important. But most of us are afraid to step up because we don't have the resources, right? And that's what you're saying. But that's not how we get we get the resources by stepping up, right?
Yeah.
We get it by stepping out, by taking action, by doing it. People are afraid of the little that they might feel like they have. They don't have enough. Well, that's only going to reinforce that they're going to get little or less and less and less and less and less.
Yeah.
That's an important mindset shift. That's huge. And yeah, I mean, it just from all that you shared to point, a major thing that you did right in your life, answering the call, honoring the call, right? Coming to that point in your life, huge.
Whenever it came up. Now, that being said, there are plenty of times where I didn't honor the call.
Yeah, right.
You know, I need to write my book or whatever, and I was just freaking miserable for years because I refused to sit down. And I would always have some juicy excuse like, well, I just don't have enough time. Like I would refuse to even take the 30 minutes I had and honor that voice. And I'm miserable for years.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, let's use that and we'll flip it here. What are some things that you've done wrong? 1, 2, 3 things over the course of your life that you've done wrong. You just alluded to maybe one. But over the course of your life, if you could say, man, if I could have that back, I would have made this choice. You know, you're looking back, you fail forward. You use failure as a teacher, a friend, a mentor, a trainer that's helped you to move forward towards success, which is important. But what are some of those things looking back that you say, man, if I could have that one again, not looking for trade secrets, not looking for dirty laundry, you know, keep the skeletons in the closet. There's a podcast for that. It's not this one. And, but for you, Jarrod, what are a few things that you said, man, if I could have them back?
So one is doing all the different tasks myself and telling myself the reason I was doing that was because I didn't have the money to outsource it. That's a recipe for disaster. One reason is if you look at your to-do list, everything on your to-do list could be outsourced to somebody else for $15 an hour, provided there was a system in place and they were trained on how to use it. There's nothing on your to-do list that is unique, that only you can do it. For crying out loud, even heart surgeons and eye surgeons delegate. So that's one reason. So the more you are doing those tasks, the more of your day you are sucking up with low-paying hours. So at the end, you're like, I don't have enough money to hire somebody. Well, of course you don't. You insist on spending your day doing the lowest paying tasks just to get them done. So that was one mistake. Made that for years. Cut that out. You can afford an assistant for 2 hours a week. Start there. Another thing I did was...
So let's pause on that really quick. So how would you say that in a way if you were counseling your younger self or someone else and you'd say, don't do this? Is it as simple as like, don't think you can't afford to outsource or don't do everything yourself? Or how would you phrase that?
I would say if somebody does that task for a living, go talk to them. Your time is way better spent on the thing that you're good at than on Google and YouTube trying to get mediocre at the thing you suck at. It's just there's no return. So don't do it all yourself. That was a mistake I made. A related mistake to that is myself. You don't have the money? Doesn't matter. Partner with somebody, barter with somebody, trade with somebody, build relationships. Your net worth is in your network. Build relationships, get out of the house. That introversion is going to kill you. Build relationships. That was another mistake I made. And the last mistake, I would say, really big, could even go up there in terms of regrets, is when I had the music mental illness, There was a lot of times that I didn't practice, and I regret that. I don't think it would have changed where I ended up now, but it would have been a much different experience. And the reason I didn't practice is I was like, well, I don't see an end game here. How am I going to make money with this? Where am I going to work with this? When life's calling you to step up, it's not calling you to understand everything. It's just calling you to honor the next step. And for me, that next step at that time was practicing. And I squandered my college years playing pool instead.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I mean, yeah, I mean, ultimately, we can't know the future. And so what you're saying is we have a vision that we're working towards. We might have a goal. And if we can't make sense of the end game, it short circuits the process or the things that we do today. And so how would you have gone about that differently? For instance, in music, would it have been like reminding yourself of the vision, or trying to find a way that you could make money doing music so that it would incentivize the practicing today? Or how could you have changed that? Or how would you counsel, younger Jarrod to go about it to avoid that failure of not practicing?
Trust the process. If you feel a call to write the book or practice the art form, practice the art form. Trust the process. It's not you to figure out how to market and sell that right now. And then the next step, when it does come to paying the bills, again, it's not you to figure that out. So what I was doing is, again, I was trying to wear all the hats. If I was doing it over again, I would have spent infinitely more time building relationships, partnering with people, talking to booking agents, talking to office managers, that kind of thing. Let them do what they get paid for so I can do what I get paid for. I think that would have shifted my music experience at least a little bit, but I probably would still end up where I am today as a speaker and a coach.
Yeah. That's so good. Yeah. Why is it that we want to take on everything ourselves? Or like, maybe what was it for you? Like, you try to do everything yourself. Like you said, even to the extent where you're learning new things, but we only end up being mediocre. Like, what was it about that? Or what do you think just in general, why do we struggle with that so much?
Doing things ourselves?
Wanting to do everything ourselves.
Wanting to do it ourselves. Some people want to do it themselves because that's how they respond to feeling out of control. That's how they fight fear and anxiety. Well, I'm feeling uncertain here, so the solution is for me to be in more control. Really, genius? How much experience do you have with a surgeon's knife? Right. No, we do not need you in control of some things. We need you to trust that people that have the experience. That's what we need. But some people just by default, their response is to, I need to be in control. Well, I get that you're happier, but if we're honest, your life doesn't work when you're in control.
Yeah. Okay? How are things going for you right now? Right.
Yeah. Let's rethink that. I think that's one reason. I think another reason is the logic of it all. Well, I mean, I don't have the time to train somebody, so I have to do this. This is due right now, so I have to do it. Well, I don't have the money to outsource it, so I have to do it. The reasons sound really, really good. And that's where I come in. And my work is teaching people how to think at a higher level so that they can see other solutions that are more profitable to solving this problem.
That's so good. Yeah. So I wrestle with, do I have the money to outsource something, right? Or I could save the $30 a month, or I could save the $100 a month, or I could save the $1,000 or whatever it is if I just did it myself. And I think, what we're not taking into consideration is the ROI, right? If we looked at that as an investment and say, okay, I'm going to pay the $30 a month, I'm going to pay the $1,000 a month, whatever it is, what is that going to yield me? Right? We fail to see that because our line of sight's not raised, right? We're still down in the maze. And we say, well, I'm not going to make that decision because I'm going to only lose. I'm not going to gain. And it has that scarcity mindset versus like an abundance mindset. Essentially, or the other one, and maybe this is more just unique to me, but the pride thing. Like I think I can do better than anyone else. So I'm just going to do, and I'm going to learn something new, and I'm going to be the best one at it. It doesn't matter, and it's easy to, keep telling yourself that story as far as like, well, I can do it better and do it better than anyone else, So why not just do everything and just be the greatest at everything and get all the money for myself, And it just reminds me of the what's the old saying that, if you want to go fast, go by yourself, but if you want to go far, go with others or something like that. So
amen to that.
Do you have thoughts on that?
Preach. Well, yes and no. And what I would say is, there's not one answer. There are many situations where it is better for you to go alone, because you can see something that those around you can't see yet.
Sure.
And society isn't going to get there if you try to take them with you. It's that whole Henry Ford thing. Had I asked people what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse.
Right.
So there are times for going alone. What I would suggest, though, is there's a limit on what you can do alone.
Mm-hmm.
And good. So it's the whole, well, I can go faster by myself. That's true, you can. Let's not use that as an excuse for avoiding the hard conversation, for avoiding the enrollment conversations, for avoiding sharing the message with people. Let's not use your bent towards introversion, Mr. Hermit. Right? So I would say, sort of.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and even in Ford's case, he wasn't the one to actually design and build the 8-cylinder engine. He had a team that did that, right? But he had the vision, and he held the vision. And so, like you said, like in one sense he went alone, but then in another sense he didn't. And it's I think having that discernment of when you ought to go alone and what that actually means, and that's not necessarily at odds with going with other people. It just depends on what the relationship is.
It's not as odd. Similar to Ford, he had the vision, they built it. I mean, we've seen that recently with Elon Musk and the Hyperloop. He gave a speech. He mentioned this idea offhand. A month later, we've got teams assembled digging. Like they just took it upon themselves to build his vision.
Right.
That I don't even know if they talked to the guy. They were like, "Oh my gosh, that's a great idea. Let's go do it." Einstein has this quote where he said something like, "It's not my job to figure out how. We have mathematicians for that." So he was just describing when he was looking into this quantum field, he was like theorizing what's going on and then turning it over to the mathematicians to prove it. You guys write the math for this because that's your job.
Yeah, I see it, but I can't explain it. You guys do that. Yeah,
you explain it. Yeah,
that's awesome. That's great.
Well, I'm really excited to share with you that What Not to Do has been gaining traction and momentum and experiencing some early wins, which is super exciting, and reminded me this show is about you, it's for you, and I couldn't do it without you. So thank you so much. If you're part of a company, if you own a company, and you think your message would be really, really relevant and valuable to the folks that are part of this community, entrepreneurs, leaders, public figures, and those aspiring as such, reach out to me. My contact info is in the show notes, and we can sit down and consider what it would look like to partner together in equipping the world for success.
All right, man. Well, going back to our environments, folks that have had an influence or impact on our lives, I think there are several folks throughout life that happens for everyone. Sometimes we're aware of it, sometimes we're not. Sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's negative, sometimes it's direct, sometimes it's indirect. But curious for you, who's someone in your life that seems to really stand out above others as far as if you took them out of your life, took them out of your story, you just wouldn't be the same Jarrod Haning that you are today?
Oh, golly, I have so many. Oh, man.
Well, give us a handful. It's all good.
Oh, geez, a handful. In school, I had a teacher, probably the only teacher that I connected with. Well, not the only one that I connected with, but it was like fifth grade. and it was the first time that I felt at home and safe at school. I made straight A's the whole year. It was like the only time that had ever happened in my life. And I owe it to that teacher, speaking my language and helping me to understand her language. Great teacher. In music, I had several teachers that both made music fun and made music inspiring. I would not be the player I am without them getting me started at all. In work, there's a couple people that come to mind. This might be kind of silly, but Alex Hermosi, he runs I think it's like $100 million business, Gym Launch, something like that. I'm not in the fitness business. I'm not, but I follow that dude's ads because he knows how to run ads. But similarly, I wouldn't know about him if it wasn't for Russell Brunson in the ClickFunnels community. That I think that's like a $400 million business right now. That it's just inspiring to me what is possible. The Mind Scan, the guy who owns the Mind Scan, when he came up to me at that meeting and shared it with me, absolutely changed my life, changed my business. Okay, this one is really silly. This is going to sound really silly. Joe Rogan.
There you
but
go.
let me tell you why. Let me tell you why. It's not because he's all like alpha male. He had a guest, Jordan Peterson and Michaela Peterson, I think like 2 years ago, and they were talking about how they eat only meat. And how before they started eating only meat, they were dying. They had all these autoimmune issues and they couldn't get out of bed and they were super sick and nothing was working. And through elimination, they discovered that meat was the only thing that didn't cause them to react. They started eating only meat and now they're fine. They've got energy and clarity and they sleep great and all this other great stuff. When I heard that episode, I thought, you got to be kidding me. That's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. That's a horrible idea. I mean, what about this and this and this and this and this and this and this? But just like riding a bicycle, when you're 5 and they take off the training wheels and you're wobbly and you don't have it yet, and somebody comes by and goes, what you need to do is go faster. You're like, that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. If I can't balance slow, how is that going to help?
Right.
Crazy Aunt Jenny. So that's where I was at when I heard that episode. But 8 years before that episode, for 8 years, I was struggling with food. I would eat something and then have to take a nap. I would eat something and have a headache. I couldn't figure it out. And I was trying all the stuff. I was trying only vegetables. I was trying juicing. I was trying probiotics. I was trying smoothies. I was trying exercise. I tried all the stuff. I tried blood tests, right? It wasn't working. It wasn't working. And I heard that podcast that I would not have heard had it not been for Joe Rogan. I heard that podcast. And then eventually I had hit a point that was so bad. I was in bed 3 days a week. I couldn't get out of bed. When I was out of bed, my brain was such a fog. I couldn't read. I couldn't write, had no energy. I couldn't work. I was going to be homeless. And I said, all right, fine, I'll do it. And I started eating only meat. Oh my word. Saved my life. Head clear right away. Started sleeping great. Started waking up great. I have never in my life woke up rested. But when I started the carnivore diet, I started waking up rested. My workouts are incredible. Body fat just like falls away. I look good. I've got energy. Eating only meat saved my life. I never would have known about that had it not been for the Joe Rogan podcast.
Awesome. Love it, man. So what does a normal meal look like for you?
Just meat.
Do eggs count
meat.
as meat?
For me, they do.
Yeah.
For me, they do. But not because they count as meat, because it's a food I have found I can eat that I don't react to.
Got it. Yep.
That's the only reason. Eggs do. Cheese, I don't seem to react to cheese. But there's sometimes if I put like some seasoning or something on my steak, I'm messed up. If I eat some beef jerky from an off-brand or something, I'm messed up.
Hmm.
I do have coffee.
Yep.
I do have coffee. I'm not religious about it. Um, I, 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 I don't want to say I struggle with it, but I acknowledge that because I'm eating only meat, a sentient being traded their life for mine. And I'm not thrilled with that trade. And if vegetables would play fair, I would be happy to eat them. But right now they have been killing me. And I've done all the stuff.
Hmm.
So I do it because it works for me.
Yeah.
And I acknowledge that there is a humane, ethical trade-off that cannot be cleanly made. I just don't think you can say either or.
Yeah.
So delicately, I'm a carnivore.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I've only vaguely heard of that way of eating, and I'll have to look into it. That's awesome. That's really, really cool. And how long have you been doing that?
I've been doing it for 6 months.
Cool.
I had blood tests at 3 months in, and markers were just like they were before I started. Coming up on the end of 6 months here, so I'm going to probably do another blood test just to check again. When I first got into it, it was like it was working, right? I had energy, I had clarity. I felt like it saved my life. But I had all these intellectual concerns. What about heart disease? What about heart attacks? What about cholesterol? What about nutrient deficiencies? What about scurvy? What about, right? So I started researching and researching and researching and researching. And what I found is now I feel safer actually on only meat when it comes to cholesterol and heart attack, that kind of thing. I feel way safer.
Yeah.
And there's people that have been eating only meat for 20 years. So our science and our understanding of nutrition, I don't want to say that it's flawed, just that at the time that we were studying those things, we were studying them on people that were eating flawed diet. Now we're starting to study on people that are eating only meat, just like we're also studying on people that eat only vegetables. Because I mean, I readily acknowledge that people have the same life-changing testimony that I do because they switched to all vegetables. Great, go get them, tear it up, right? So yeah, obviously do your research, but it works for me.
Yeah, well, it comes back to that age-old, wisdom, know thyself, right? And so, yeah, for you, and how your body is responding, real issues, right? You wouldn't wish upon your worst enemies, maybe, and then you found a really awesome solution with the carnivore diet. That's awesome, very cool. So yeah, so if you can relate to what Jarrod was talking about and how he was feeling from a bodily perspective, and you get how the body and the mind and the spirit all correlate together, and ought to work in harmony. That's a huge piece. That make life miserable to feel like you were in bed for 3 days, right? I mean, just because you felt that bad, Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so very, very cool, very helpful. I'm gonna have to check out that episode from Joe Rogan. I've actually never listened to a Joe Rogan podcast, but I think what he's done from a conceptual standpoint, and I love it, which is cool. So, not the best advice, Jarrod, but what's some of the worst advice that you hear floating around these days, or maybe you were given somewhere along the way? Just some really bad advice.
Bad advice. Bad advice includes you need to work harder. I mean, coal miners work hard, and all they get in the end is emphysema. I think you need to work harder is bad advice. I think it's dangerous advice. You need to try harder is insidious advice. It is deceptively evil. You need to try harder. Because there is no such thing as try. If you were to hold your hand on your lap or your desk or whatever, and I ask you to try to move it like you're convincing me as an actor on a stage, you either move your hand or you don't move your hand. Now, you might have a lot of energy and effort and strain, and you might get your other hand and try to move it over there and try to move it. But the moment your hand actually moves, you're no longer trying. You have moved your hand. And the only difference between not moving your hand and trying is a bunch of wasted effort and drama. So do or do not, there is no try. And I think that word try should fall into category of horrible advice. So simply saying it means you aren't committed to moving your hand. Well, I'll try to do better. No, just tell the truth now, right? Bad advice.
We could add an E onto the end of it and call it a 4-letter word. Let's do that. That's good, man. And that can be very provocative in our day and age, because like you said, it's very deceptive. Why? Because, well, it's kind of like a half truth. Like it seems like there's some wisdom there, something there. And I get from this conversation, you're not saying, well, sometimes I don't think it's helpful to qualify things, right? Because then it loses its punch. And I don't even want to do that here. It is bad advice. If someone tells you just need to work harder, you just need to try harder, it's bad advice. Go back to the beginning of this episode and listen to it over again, right? There you go. Awesome. All right, man. It's rush hour in Columbia, South Carolina. It's rush hour in Green Bay, Wisconsin. It's rush hour everywhere in the world, all at the same time, because time zones don't exist on what not to do. And the past, present, and the future, they're all happening simultaneously anyway. So what are time zones? But it's everyone's stuck in a traffic jam, and you know what? They're all listening to What Not to Do with Jarrod Haning. It's just awesome. Their minds are being blown. Their line of sight's being raised. It's exciting. And their line of sight's being raised so much that they see a billboard out their window and they look up, and once you know it, it's Jarrod Haning's billboard. Oh my gosh. What a coincidence. What are the odds? And what message, Jarrod, do they see? What message do you want the world to see?
Do it imperfectly. What I would say. I think there is a place for excellence. There is a place for I believe there is a place for excellence. I mean, that's kind of part of being a musician, is it's never good enough. You're constantly trying to refine it. Mm-hmm. I think the greater damage to society is waiting until we can do it perfectly to even start. Do it perfectly. Like, publish the book, publish a crappy book. Okay, fine. Publish a crappy podcast episode. Start a business, let it fail. Do it imperfectly, because at least now the wheels are turning, and you can't steer the vehicle if the wheels aren't turning. And I believe that is better for us ultimately than waiting to be perfect. So fail.
Absolutely. And so we've talked about this. The way that I think about, like we get when I say iteration from like a business perspective, you have a product and this, this process of iteration. So you get this real-time feedback, and it's this evolution of the product to make it become a really good product, versus taking 30 years to create the perfect product, that you find out the market doesn't even have a taste for, or it did 20 years ago, so it's irrelevant. And I think our lives are like that in a macro sense. And what you're saying is do it imperfectly, iterate it, just get it out there and get the feedback. And by doing the iteration, or by doing the practicing, you're actually gonna get better. So just do it imperfectly and keep doing it imperfectly. And you're going to find over time, as you keep doing it imperfectly, you're actually going to start doing it better. Yeah. Awesome. Love it. That's so good, man. All right. Bonus round. 3 books that you think need to be on people's bookshelves. And that the longer they put off reading, the worse their lives are going to be.
If in listening to this podcast, you have been reawakened to that itch that life is calling you to create something, or publish something, or do something to stop being a mindless cog and be a part of creating the machine, to get out there and do. If that's been reawakened, then I would say one of the key books is The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield, not to be confused with The Art of War by Sun Tzu. but this is The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. The absolute best book for anyone that has ever had a call to launch a business, to launch a venture, to write a book, whatever it is, to do something. Amazing. If you don't have that call, if you don't have that itch, that scratch, that creativity, that's okay. Don't worry about that. Let me substitute for you a different book, and that is Life's Golden Ticket by Brendan Burchard. It's an allegorical tale. It is completely unlike his other book. I mean, like no comparison. It is very, it's like a holistic, wholesome life allegory. It's not like business strategy, performance. It's not like that at all. So Life's Golden Ticket, I would recommend. The other two, I think, apply to everybody. And first one is The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. Oh my gosh. So simple, so small, so short. And that lens of viewing the world is absolutely transformational. And then the last one would be Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz, who was a plastic surgeon and really got on to the difference between how people see the world and how people see themselves. Great book. Psycho-Cybernetics.
Awesome. So The War of Art, Pressfield, Life's Golden Ticket, The Four Agreements, and a fourth one, Psycho-Cybernetics. That's awesome, man. I honestly, like, the question is more like selfishly for me, like what books can I add to my read list, get out my shelf. But I'm assuming our listeners have found the value and the joy of reading and lifelong learning, and especially if they want to begin to kind of start to trace your thoughts and they've been really moved or impacted by something you said in this episode, that this can get them on that trail to go shake up the world, which is really, really cool. Awesome. Very cool. So if you guys want to get in touch with Jarrod, you can do that. So Jarrod, what would be the best way for folks to get in touch with you, either learn from you, do business with you, partner with you in some capacity? Where can they find you?
I would just say go to mindsetperformance.co. Mindsetperformance.co. It is kind of a mouthful, but you can reach out to me there, contact me there, shoot me an email. If you want to learn more about the Mind Scan, see if you'd be interested in seeing what your thinking patterns look like once they get mapped out, and what kind of breakthroughs are available for you, or what life would look like if we got rid of the blind spots that have been tripping you up. So Mindset Performance, absolutely there. And then other than that, just, the socials, right? Hit me up on the socials.
Awesome.
I'll be happy to get in touch with you.
Yeah, we're connected, I think, on LinkedIn. And are you on Facebook and Instagram?
Facebook,
and there? Okay, cool. Awesome. Good stuff. Well, Jarrod, this has been so awesome. So much fun, fascinating, inspiring, encouraging. Thank you so much for being on the show. Really, really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Hold tight.
Great conversation with Jarrod. Let's recap our time together. First, don't be a penny wise and a pound foolish. Don't be a penny wise and a pound foolish. This is where, Jarrod was talking about, doing everything yourself because you don't have the money to outsource, to give it to somebody else. It seems like, hey, that's the smart thing to do. I can save right now. And maybe there's a time to think on that. But what Jarrod was doing was he was flipping it and saying, hey, look at how much time it's taking you. What if this is $100 a month? I can save it there. What if this is $100 a month? I can save it here. Well, what could you yield by taking that $100, for instance, let's say to do the podcast editing that I'm doing, and I gave that to somebody else, or let's say it cost me $1,000 a month to do the podcast editing, and I paid someone else to do that, right? But what I've been doing myself. Well, what if that podcast editing, by doing that, gave me 20 hours, 30 hours a month back? How could I reinvest those now free hours of productivity, right? How could I reinvest those 30 hours to produce something more, which is going to yield greater content, right? And a higher ROI or return on my investment, income, right? And so we can miss it. And sometimes that's why we never actually break the plane of whatever our income is because we're so stuck trying to do everything ourselves, and we're being a penny wise and a pound foolish. We're not willing to pay someone else to do a task really, really well, so that our time can be freed up to go back into things that we are really, really, really good at, which is driving the value anyway. And so don't be a penny wise and a pound foolish. Secondly, don't stop practicing. Don't stop practicing. It's easy to want to stop it, but really what we're doing is we're stopping the compounding effect, right? When we put in our time a little bit every day, a little bit every day, a little bit every day, it adds up, it adds up, it adds up. And over the years, we look back and we're like, oh my gosh. Like for me, I mentioned on guitar, if you are a musician out there, you can understand that. You put in 20, 30 minutes a day, 6 days a week, or whatever it might be, 7 days a week. And it's amazing over time how that instrument becomes an extension of who you are. You can close your eyes and play the music that you hear, or whatever it is. I mean, it's amazing the flexibility, the freedom that comes with that kind of discipline, right? Whatever your niche might be, and this kind of goes hand in hand with don't stop learning. If you're in real estate, if you're in finance, whatever the industry is, don't stop learning. Don't stop practicing your trade. Don't stop practicing your niche. Keep the blade sharp, right? And it'll be huge. And last but not least, don't be perfect. Don't be perfect, right? I think it was G.K. Chesterton that said that anything worth doing is worth doing poorly. And that's an important lesson for us to learn. And he was a great author in his own right. Anything that's worth doing, it's worth doing poorly. The reality is we're never going to be perfect. And so if we wait till we are, or till we think or feel that we are, look, we're going to have missed the boat a long time ago, right? I mean, that's going to be, the reality is we're never going to be perfect, right? So, but even to the point where we think we finally can, look, if that's our mindset, something else is probably going to come up that's going to cause, fear or anxiety or worry or hesitation to where we're not going to go and launch anyway. So here's the deal. Get out there, put yourself out there, and don't be perfect, right? Iterate on a macro level and a micro level. All right. Thank you so much for listening. This podcast is about you, it's for you, and I couldn't do it without you. If you've been helped, blessed, encouraged, built up, better equipped for success by this podcast, share it with somebody else who you think would be really helped by it. One way you can do that is by giving us a 5-star review on whatever platform it is that you listen on. Apple Podcasts is great. I think a lot of you guys are out there listening to that, which is fantastic. And hey, Colorado, speaking of listenership, I've got a huge... huge. I've got a decent following out in Colorado, which is really, really cool. So if you're listening to this right now, reach out to me. Let me know who you are. I've no idea who might be listening out in Colorado. So I think Centennial and Inglewood, I think, are the two cities that I'm seeing popping up. And so thank you guys for supporting me all the way out in Colorado. It's a great state. It would be beautiful. I'd love to close my eyes and wake up in the mountains. So maybe we'll get out to Colorado and do What Not to Do live, if that'd be awesome. Or just let me know who you are. Let's get in touch. I want to meet you guys. So if you guys are a company, and you guys have value to bring to this community here of entrepreneurs, leaders, and public figures, let's sit down, let's connect, and see how we can best tell your story to the community here. And always looking for folks to be able to interview. Maybe that's you, or maybe you know someone you want to hear their story here on What Not to Do. They've had success and some level as an entrepreneur, leader, or public figure, and they're willing to lean into their failures. In fact, they'd really enjoy doing that. They'd be perfect fit on this show. And I would also love to be able to share what we're doing here with What Not to Do on your podcast. So if you're listening to this and you're a host and you think, man, it'd be really, really cool to have Kyle on to talk about what, why failure, why focusing on this thing, what's the virtue behind that, let's connect. And I'd love to be able to share that message as well. Well, it's been said that good men learn from their own mistakes, but great men, they learn from the mistakes of others. So go and be great. We'll see you next time.